thought I'd just drop.
The Colorado Rapids is Sporting Denver's hometown club. I wanted to find out about the makeup of the organisation, its mechanics, its philosophy on homegrown talent. On Sporting Denver with us today, we have a legend here in Colorado, Brian Crookham, who is the Senior Director for all of the soccer development, who is going to share with us pretty much everything. Brian, welcome to the show, mate.
Well, thank you. Legend is a little bit fluffy, but we'll go with it for now.
I've got it down on my list, though, Brian. I actually wrote it, so it's good. It's good to stick, mate. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll put that in my bio.
Thank you. Don't ask me for a reference, though. Do you want to explain to everyone about your role, your current role there, Brian, please?
Yeah. So when we look at what we're doing in the development space, it's a big piece of kind of the ethos of our club nowadays. And in my role specifically, I oversee everything that we're doing in that space. So right now, most of my time actually goes with our partnership with the Colorado Springs Switchbacks in USL. As part of our partnership, I'm the general manager of the USL franchise. So certainly that's a big piece of it. And that partnership not only gives us the ability to hopefully assist in what they're doing down there. They're a standalone club that's really ambitious and putting a new stadium in the market starting next spring and really want to be a competitor in USL. But it also gives us a chance for our young players our young professionals, some of our academy players to go there and earn some minutes too. And so that's one piece of what we're doing. And then everything in our development pathway. So our academy, our youth partnerships, our alliances outside, and some of the other pieces that we do on both a national and international scale all kind of report up through me at all as well. So plenty of hats, and it depends on the day. But we've got a pretty functional and fully integrated pathway for players now.
You've been with the Rapids for well over a decade now, so legend status does apply, Brian. I'm going to tell you that. So you must be doing something right. When you came into the Rapids organisation, what was your first role? And explain how it's sort of evolved into where you're at now, mate.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. I actually started, excuse me, in 2004 doing television work when Altitude came on. In about 2000, at the end of 2006 season, going into 2007, MLS came up with the Homegrown initiative, and the Rapids jumped in and said, "All right, we're in. We're going to begin the academy." And so, in the spring of 2007. I came on board full time from a club side to be part of that process and lead that process. So that first year it was pretty crazy. A couple weeks into it, we found out we would be hosting the first ever MLS Youth Cup, and we had no players, no teams, no staff. So I got to quickly throw together two teams, coach them, administrate, drive the bus. Everything that you could ask for in that. And then a couple weeks later, the Development Academy idea came out, and we became a charter member of that. So that first year was really crazy. But we knew that we couldn't live on just having two teams, and that's how you develop players. And so over the last 13 years, we've kind of built out an entire player development platform. And as that's built out, my role is kind of, morphed as we've gone. We also had 2008, we had some staff changes. So I ended up working with the first team as well as an assistant coach, both for Fernando Clavijo and then Gary Smith's first year. And then we got a little bit more focused in the youth space again. And So it's just kind of built and built and built until we've had a big platform and plenty of jobs. So the more programs we add, the more titles I add, but we're very fortunate to have a lot of quality staff working in our program, and it's been a great journey to this point.
As the players get older, Brian, maybe round about the 12, 13, 14, when it becomes a little bit more serious, how do you identify those set players that you think maybe be that player for that homegrown talent to step up to the next level? How do you deal with that scenario?
Yeah, I think there's only a couple things that should ever limit a player from being successful, and that's their own talent and their motivation to be successful. And I think as we've gone through this process, what we really feel is important, number one, is a player's kind of intrinsic motivation to go down the pathway. It can't be the parent or their club coach or somebody that wants to push them that way because they like them and think they're great. It's got to be that player's initiative to really be the protagonist in their own development. So I think that's one key piece. And the second key piece, and these are two things that are very difficult to measure when you walk out to the field on Saturday and watch a player play sometimes, is their ability to take on board information and to learn. I think those are two baseline things that they've got to have coming into a professional setup to give them any chance. On top of that, when we look at them from a pure soccer standpoint, we're looking for a kind of a skill that is at an elite level that we can build around. So whether that's elite level technique, their understanding of the game is great. There, some physical quality and sometimes that we can build around, that we start to look at the entire package, but this is a mainstay of that package. And then you look at all of their qualities and say, is there anything fatal in here? Do they have something that maybe will prevent them in their skill set, a deficiency that won't let them be a professional player? And generally at the younger age groups, we don't find a lot of that. But in the end, and I said this last week in an interview, but in the end, if you want to be a goalkeeper and both parents are 5'2", you got to choose your parents wisely in those scenarios. So, we look at that kind of holistic package, but is there something that we can build around? And then is there any, fatal characteristics that we're pretty sure would be a limiting factor as they go forward?
Thankless task. So it's why you've probably got that good platform of those support coaches, your go-to guys or ladies that make up that philosophy of identifying those players. What's the pyramid system? You being at the top, of course. What's the pyramid look like with the format of coaches in there from U18? Let's take U18 down to that U14 age group. What's it look like, Brian?
Sure. We actually run in our academy this year. We've run 6 youth teams, so our under 19s, our under 17s, our under 15s, and then we have 14s, 13s, 12s. We've got a full-time head coach in each of those age groups. We've got strength and conditioning and athletic training personnel that are assigned to each one of those pieces. Chris Sharp's done a great job for a lot of years with our goalkeepers.
Sure.
And so and now Chris Cartledge is our academy director and oversees the technical direction of our academy specifically. And so we've got a very good staff that have the ability to really put time into those players. And within each age group, and I think the age groups become a starting point for players, because there's going to be players that maybe need to move on and be challenged at different age groups and different levels. But the age group head coach basically is responsible for the player development plan for each player. Can they, recognize what traits they need to build on, strengths, weaknesses, where we need to spend a lot of time with these players? And then, are they needing a challenge outside the age group that the head coach runs? And so those are all big pieces of that. But, we're very fortunate to have been able to assemble a staff that's unbelievably competent in looking at those pieces and helping these players get the information they need and move at a pace that's appropriate to their development.
In those age groups where you're really pushing them on, Brian, like, that U16, when it becomes super serious on both sides, certainly for the player and also your staff, what's it look like, a training week for those age groups, right through to your U19s?
Yeah, so really, if you look at the 15, 17, 19s in our groups, they play on a regional and national scale. That actually creates a little bit of a headache sometimes because we will tend, when we travel, and basically anytime we play an away game, we're going to have to get on an airplane, given the region that we come from. That creates some issues in playing double games on the weekends, things like that. So, first of all, we map the competition schedule into the calendar. And then we back up from there. But generally, if we've got a Saturday match, then we'll have some type of recovery on a Sunday, Monday off, and then back into a training rhythm with Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on site, probably peaking in that Wednesday and Thursday session, tapering a little bit for Friday, maybe looking a little bit more specifically toward what we're trying to achieve on the weekend. And then from there, we got the competition, we start over. When you start adding double weekends, a Friday, Saturday game, and say we go play FC Dallas and Solar in Dallas, you've got travel on the Sunday, we may have to modify the workloads, A, because of the competition schedule and how many minutes guys are playing on the weekend, and B, because of the travel and the demands on that. And sometimes that travel is longer. It may be Florida, it may be California, and it may be in an international scenario. So, we've got great guys in the sports science department that are able to help us periodize the work. And so those weeks can vary, but generally we've got guys on site 5 to 6 days a week. We try to make sure that we've got a day off in there, and we plan recovery, and throughout the calendar, we've got spaces where we get them away for a few weeks to make sure that they're able to recover both physically and psychologically, grow a little bit. They're kids. They've got to make sure that we're taking care of them in that space. And so really we've probably got 10 and a half months to 11 months worth of activity a year, with a couple of big breaks built in to make sure that we're healthy.
With the current climate, there's been a mass use of the internet on the learning development for players and coaches as well, Brian. No doubt you've been utilising that, but have you done that in your program prior? The internet explosion of home teaching, call it what you will.
Yeah, I think, in the past, it's been used what I would call sporadically. We live in a climate where we may have days in December or January where we're not able to bring athletes onto site. So maybe we're sending out pre-recorded workouts for them. Maybe we're sending out tactical exercises that they need to try to look at completing and getting back to their staff. Maybe it's the electronic distribution of their player development plans and working through pieces on that. So we've done some of that. I think we've opened it, and we talked off air about, opening a new door now with the way we're reacting to this, the current crisis, and had a lot of success with things like Zoom and being able to have individual meetings, group meetings, maybe lines of players. It may be, an entire team, whatever that means. And the information distribution platforms that are available to us now actually might make us more efficient. Maybe on a Sunday after we've traveled, we don't have to bring guys back into the stadium. Maybe we can do a Zoom recovery session and save some guys up to an hour and a half of travel time, travel in 45 minutes, travel back 45 minutes for a 45-minute session. Maybe we can be more efficient in those things. And, I think we have to be really careful. A good part of coaching is that relationship and that feel for players and that face-to-face interaction. And I don't think we ever want to claim that we can, adequately replace that. I think, but what we do know is that there are now tools that we can effectively use that we've had to learn in some cases over the last couple of months to utilize, and it will, in some cases, help change and help us be a little more efficient in the way we work with players in the future.
So it's a well-rounded program. So I'm in the system. I'm touching 17, 18, maybe playing, into that 19 age group, knowing that there is a pathway to the first team if I'm good enough. And the switchbacks are in there as well, which you're the general manager, Brian. How does that then come into play with that young player that, or two or three players that you've picked out that may have, we want to see them out there playing against the full adults. How does that integrate with that program, Brian?
Yeah, I think as players progress in our system, if you look at what we're doing as a league, and I think we're probably following a trend that's internationally happening as well. We're signing more pros out of our academies at younger ages. So our ability to test those players with professional players is key. We have guys as young as 15. If you look at Darren Yappy, it was pretty public that he spent quite a bit of time in our first team preseason travel with our first team to California, went through the whole first stage of preseason with that group. And you're able to see how they react to the environment. You're able to see how they're able to integrate from a technical standpoint, how fast they can process information. Again, how quickly do they make up ground where playing as a 15 or a 17 and then jumping to the first team is a massive level.
Huge. Yeah.
The switchbacks piece for us is another tool that we can use in that process. And so we use it for our young professionals that are already signed that maybe are not going to be in a game day roster, or maybe not going to be, or going to be an unused sub on the week. We can get them supplemental minutes. But the opposite of that is now bringing some of these young players in, allowing them to train more consistently at the USL level with professional players on a daily basis. That just increases our opportunity to do that. We got some that will spend time with our first team every week. We got some that'll spend time with our USL team every week, our USL partner every week. And then the great thing about USL is because of the way that they're set up and lack of some of the regulation that comes on with different collective bargaining pieces, we're actually able to allow amateur players to play in USL. So if you look at it last year, we had 8 different players, and whether it was in Open Cup competition or USL competition, we had 8 different academy players actually play for the switchbacks last year. And that's a significant opportunity for those guys to learn and adjust. And, the fortunate thing is those guys weren't far off the pace. And so we feel like it's actually a supplement to what is not a developmental team in Colorado Springs. They're a full-fledged competition or USL team that wants to compete every single week, and they're not a 2 team. So having to get into that team and earn the time versus us giving them the time is a whole different part of the process for them.
On those playing levels, we've looked at those stages through the academy into the USL with the switchbacks, your partner club, and also the first team. With some changes under the circumstances, and you mentioned travel, how does that work now? With those current changes that are in place, how has the Rapids adapted to that situation, Brian?
I think we've been able to look at anything in front of us, and right now, clearly our guys, we've got 4 players currently that are set up as the USL team returns to training. They're in groups of 4. Right now, we don't have any of our academy players training with our first team,
Right.
as they are still under kind of an individual training
Sure.
platform. So without being able to travel at this point,
Right.
we've been pretty innovative. Once we get back to that piece, we're going to have to look at the situation, and the return to play for all of these guys is going to be dictated not only by what we can accomplish in our own market, but what other markets are going to allow, what's safe for everybody. And so, we've got great medical advisors, we've got
Sure.
great teams around, and I think, without directly blowing off your question, the answer is not 100% clear yet. It's something that's going to
Right.
evolve as we go here. And we've had an unbelievable amount of support from our ownership group in doing what
Of course.
was needed to provide that competition, whether it's domestic or international competition for these academy players. And I think we'll continue to be able to do that with the guys that we're trying to pull through here.
Yeah, the changes coming through. I think most of the professional and semi-professional clubs and the youth organisations will adjust accordingly with what is out there. Just explain a little bit about the local leagues and the local youth setup, which obviously underpins the Rapids community programs and organisation, Brian.
Absolutely. I mean, we're set up in a situation where we take and get a lot of the credit for players that are promoted into our first team, but those players are coming from all over this state, and there's some unbelievable work that's being done now and was done before we even existed in the youth space. And we currently have 7 homegrown players on our first team roster. Each of those 7 has a different story. And if you look at the 13 players that we've signed from our academy over the last 13 years, every one of them's got a different story. And some of them come from Fort Collins, some of them come from Colorado Springs. And so those clubs are represented, and a lot of youth clubs in the Denver metro area are represented as well, to players that have really come out of a situation where somebody fostered their development, somebody fostered their excitement for the sport and gave them the opportunity to move on. If you kill a kid's enthusiasm for it and they decide they don't want to play, or they want to go to another sport because they're unbelievably talented and could excel in multiple sports. Shane O'Neill was an all-state basketball player.
Right.
If somebody would have ruined his experience early on and driven him toward basketball, his outcome would have been extremely different, because he showed talents in more than one area. So the importance of what's happening at a grassroots level on a daily basis in our youth clubs in Colorado is it can't be stated enough. And then on top of that, the way and look at the girls' side of what's happening in Colorado too. The production that the female athletes that have gone on and played for our national team, played in the professional leagues, and that's if you look at what people like Real Colorado and Rush have done, and now we have a very extensive ECNL program in Rapids Youth Soccer Club. The things that are happening in our state, both on the boys and girls side, to continue to foster that love for it and give these kids a chance is unbelievable.
I think the support of you've mentioned a couple of clubs there. There's a lot to mention out there.
Yeah,
Brian.
and you hate to say you hate to
I know
name clubs, but things are coming up where guys have really excelled, but again, those players sometimes have come from other clubs to the clubs that have promoted them on. It takes an entire village to get this done, and
sure.
we're not lacking and have never been lacking. I've been here now 25 years in this state, and looking at the production of players that have gone out and helped our national teams win World Cups on the women's side are in gold medals, and on the men's side qualify for Olympics and World
Sure.
Cups and things like that. Help us win a championship in 2010. We had a couple local players in that group. So,
That's right.
it's again the what the soccer community is doing, the importance of what they're doing every day to what we're hoping to attain from a World Cup standpoint,
Right.
and ensuring that we've got enough soccer culture to be a host when we get the biggest stage in the world coming to us in 2026. All that's great.
I think the support of all of those clubs acting as a community-based organisation under the banner of the Colorado Soccer Association pyramids that we have the opportunity to produce top high-end players and provide them with the opportunity to play professional, semi-professional, and at that high level. You did mention, Brian, you came here 25 years ago. Go on then. Where were you before then? And go on, mate.
It's been quite a journey. I mean, I'm from Oklahoma, so it was a very strange pocket in the 1970s where I was exposed to the sport, and we were very fortunate. The Tulsa Roughnecks came to town, and
Right.
And I had some. We're going through our house because we have the time to do that, and the memorabilia I have from that era is pretty incredible, and the influence that having an NASL team in our market that really didn't know. I mean, I played the communist sport when I was a kid in Oklahoma in a very American football oriented area, but I was able to play the game from a young age, continue to progress. I had an opportunity to, when I figured out that I was never going to be good enough as a player, I had the opportunity to start my coaching career very young and had some good mentors in that piece. I came up as a club director and a high school coach, thought I would be teaching and coaching forever. And then the opportunity came for me to move to Denver and become the head coach at Metro State. And I had an incredible experience at Metro State for 9 years. Like I would say, in my current situation, I had the ability to work with some people that really supported what we were doing from an athletic standpoint. Some unbelievable players and young men that came through that program at that time that allowed us to be pretty successful over those 9 years at Metro State. And then had a short stint where I got back to soccer because at Metro I was also the assistant athletic director and spent a lot of time on compliance things and things that weren't soccer related. So I had a short stint while I was doing the television. I was also working with Colorado Soccer Association, and
Right.
Then the rest we've already covered going into the Rapids.
You've always had a lot on your plate, Brian, and you seem to manage to multitask. All those things put together, does it actually roll into one package with where you're at now, mate? With the TV and the Metro, the college, the youth, the pro. How does it work, mate? Because that's unbelievable.
I draw on all those experiences every single day.
Yeah.
Even my time as an assistant athletic director. I mean, what you learn, and sometimes what I've learned by not doing things well, relationships, how you manage those things, learning how to delegate, learning how to, it's one thing to build, and I've been fortunate enough in most of my roles to be able to build, but there's a building piece, and that's the excitement, and that's the stuff that's posted on sticky notes all over your walls. But once you get something up and running, it becomes about sustaining it. And I think that's the real challenge is reinventing yourself, not getting caught. There's a real value in institutional knowledge, knowing why and how you got to someplace. But there's also a real limiting factor if you look at that as just inherited thinking and you get stuck in a pathway. And I've been really fortunate to work with people that have been able to come in, freshen up ideas, whether it's leadership above me or whether it's people that we've hired underneath that are unbelievably talented, to keep it to keep things moving down a pathway where you're sustainable and you're relevant and you can stay up with the times. And so, it's sometimes you use that experience to stay out of the way and get good people involved and let pieces of the ship go to people that need to be able to take it to another level. And so, everything in my career has happened because somebody else has given me an opportunity, and people around me have supported me. And so hopefully we can give that environment back to players, to coaches, to staff, all the way around, because it's anybody that thinks that you're in this business alone and doing it all on your own is crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and it can get pretty lonely from time to time, right, Brian?
There are days that there are days when you haven't won in weeks, and you haven't. There are a lot of scenarios that can isolate you pretty quickly, and you realize who your friends are at those points
Right.
as well. And the people that you've relied on. And again, I'm very fortunate to have been able to have some great mentors and some great people around. And I work in a state full of people who care a lot about the sport, the people in the
Yeah.
sport. We're in a community that's in this together, and that's the rewarding part of it at the end of the day.
I haven't been here as long as you. I've been here 20 years. They let me stay, Brian. I think the UK don't want me back anyway, but they let me stay here in Colorado. The thing you touched on it. I totally agree with you. I think we really do have certainly in the soccer world, we do have a tight knit community, and everybody's there to, maybe push this state forward in terms of soccer, and we're at the level we're at where we are now because of that tight knit community. I've found that.
Yeah, and I think we've got a unique, even with the state association, we've got a unique setup now where we've got the youth, the adults, the referees all in one place, and being able to the work those guys are doing to try to synchronize everything that's going on there and work together in all of those platforms. It's just going to make us all better as we move. And again, there's probably not a better community to be a part of in U.S. soccer right now.
And we are unique. I do know for a fact we're the only state in the country that everything under the soccer guidelines comes under one banner, and I think that really helps, Brian.
It does. And now that we have cooperation at the professional level between the two professional clubs all the way down, I think we're just starting to tap the potential that's available in our state. And that's with a lot of success that's preceded me or you or anybody here. The history in this state's also very deep for a lot of years.
A lot of good people been working in the state over a period of time. Under the circumstances which aren't conducive to progressing what you're doing, what would it look like currently in that player development program? If we were 3 months into the season, what would it look like from that USL standpoint, that progression with the developmental academy into the first team? Because the first team and the switchbacks got off to a great start. Must be frustrating. What would it look like now?
Well, obviously, we'd still be undefeated after playing 15 games at this point, and everybody.
Right.
But I guess we can't go back and prove that. No, I think the year that launched at the beginning of the seasonal year that launched here for us at the beginning of 2020, we had a fantastic preseason in both groups. We had a very good group of academy players at the senior levels coming back that were quite integrated, several in with our first team, several more in with our USL team, all who were able to play minutes at some stage in preseason matches throughout that. And so, if you look at what's happened, I think we announced yesterday, 8 players going on to play college soccer that are seniors in our academy program. If you add to that the fact that we've got 4 age eligible players in that group that are actually on our first team roster, then that becomes an unbelievably successful class of players.
Yes.
For us. So if you look at our starts with the two professional teams, if you look at the productivity that's coming out from an academy standpoint right now, the success of our partners in the youth space, I think 2020 has been, it will be looked at as a very productive year. And, you talked about not necessarily a productive time. To be fair, it's been an unbelievable productive time for us in ways that we could have never imagined. The engagement of our players and staff,
Sure.
our ability to, sometimes you need to be able to take the time to deal with some of the tasks that you don't necessarily want to, but you need to take to get ahead. So I actually think we're going to emerge from this time period with better plans, with better methods of doing our work, with an engaged and motivated group of players and staff that actually have done their work and haven't taken this as a rest period. They've just had to do the work in different ways and maybe focus on some different things that in the end will make us a lot better.
The system in place is proven, certainly over the development of it over the last couple of years with those players moving on. So it's been enhanced really with this situation that we're in to add more to the program to come out the back end of that player contact, that player communication, that club communication. Do you see that as a bigger addition into your program now with what you've got with those connections? I know you spoke about those rest periods on the Sundays. The feedback from the players, has that been positive to maybe use that a lot more than you have done maybe in the past, Brian?
Yeah, it has. And I think there's an unwavered desire to be on the field, both from a player and a staff standpoint, because there's nothing that can replace walking out on the field and being able to interact. I mean, part of that's just the relationship piece of that's who we are as people in sport. But there has been a willingness to accept some of the newer methodology in getting information and monitoring things, and it will shape some of the things that come out of the backside of this. But again, bottom line is we've got to get back on the field. We've got to have face-to-face human interactions. We've got to compete. We got to kick each other at times. We've got to, we've got to get back to that as soon as we can. And I think we'll be better. I think we'll be more. We'll have more perspective on things that can help and maybe supplement what we're doing. But in the end, in sport, you need to be on the field or on the court or in somebody's face competing for it to really matter, in my opinion.
What's it look like now? Because I know there's going to be, we've got to follow protocol and the process with the youth right through to the first team. What's happening with the first team right now, Brian, in terms of that getting back onto the field? What's it look like?
Well, those guys are currently in individual training sessions, working multiple times a week. There's very stringent protocols, and I'm not an infectious disease expert, and I'm not. I'm also not in the board of governors meetings, so I'll leave kind of how that timeline, both from what we know is we're going to have to work with local authorities and a very good group of clubs to finalize a plan that will get everybody back into competition very safely and define those stages in between. And I'll leave it a little bit in there because there's a ton of conversation going on a daily basis to get us there with people that are a lot smarter than I am. I think whether it's MLS groups, the USL groups, or at the academy level. First and foremost, we're going to try to ensure that everybody's safe
Sure.
And not only from a I don't know, a disease standpoint, but also from a physical standpoint, because it's going to take preseason type scenarios to return people to the activity levels that they were at when we stopped this pretty suddenly. So a lot to take in. Again, a lot of smart people working on those things, and it'll be exciting to see how that all plays out. Probably sooner than later.
Putting that to one side, because I don't want to add that to your job list, Brian, because you've got about 400 jobs anyway, mate. All the things that you've mentioned in the program today, is there particularly one item? You probably love them all anyway, but would there be one from either TV, Metro, Rapids, one point that just gave you that sheer joy because of the beautiful game of football, mate? Just one item out of all of it.
Wow.
Oh no, I got to throw it at you because I know you.
It's crazy because like every kind of pillar of what I've done has had. So what you end up missing is you end up missing that competition from a playing standpoint when whatever level you played at, or whatever, wherever you came from there, like that's the driving force to be in sport. When I was a college coach, clearly the ability to come up with a plan and try to win on the weekend and then achieve something with a group of players, it was incredible. When you look at it from a TV standpoint, there's a different, you'll know this, but there's a different thing that runs through your body when the producer counts down 3, 2, 1, and then bang, it's live. And depending on your audience, sometimes in front of a lot of people. And so sometimes you get a little rush in that. I really enjoyed that piece of it.
Right.
And occasionally still get to pop into that. From a player development standpoint, there is, we've talked about all the systems and all the things that have to come together for one individual to make their debut, or to score their first professional goal, or to be called up to the U.S. men's national team and make their debut at the international level. We've seen all of that, and the rush that comes with that is incredible as well. And so again, in all the phases of my career, I think you can point to what those highs are, but in some ways, those highs can be just as high in each kind of facet of my life.
So that's a bit of buzz from everything.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you what: if you don't, you're in the wrong. You're not doing the right things right now. If you can't find joy and a real passion to see that achieved, what's the goal? And if we achieve that goal without really spark something in you, then you probably should be doing something different.
Totally agree. I'm going to hit you with our 5 questions, quick 5.
I can't wait for this.
All right. No, mate. It's quite easy, So some obvious, couple not. But favorite player. I'll do male and female with these, Brian. Favorite player, all time, past, present.
Are there any parameters on this?
Just go for it. Go for it, mate. This is wide open, mate.
Is it a rapid fire thing, or do I get to think about these things?
No, you've got to go boom like that, allegedly. Even though Mike Freitag, who's a top bloke, took about 15 minutes to answer this one, so we ran over time. So who's your favourite player ever, male and female, Brian?
Oh, boy.
This is the easy one, mate.
It's not, because there's so many. I mean, there's favorite players I've coached. There's favorite players I've watched in history. For me to have a favorite player, I have to have seen him live. Okay. So I'm gonna go Diego Maradona.
I'm English, you know that. So
yeah,
we've had that one before. I got hammered by Argentinian players. First class, mate. First class. On the female side, Brian.
I would probably have to go back a generation in that group, and for me, it'd be a very close one. Michelle Akers was was spectacular. What she did, and Mia Hamm was the first kind of, for me, the first player that got it all. And so I like goals, so I'll go with Michelle.
Okay. A legend, right? There you go. A legend. Do the same thing with you on teams, mate. What team do you support? What team do you sort of like? What team do you support?
But before we owned it, so I'll put that disclaimer on. When I say we, I have nothing to do with that. Before Kroenke Sports was involved, I've been an Arsenal fan for a long, long time, and
Okay.
I've had the pleasure of working with guys like Steve Bold, and so from back to that era, I'm an Arsenal guy way back.
What about the female side? Who do you look at and you root for them a little bit?
U.S. women's national team.
That's a good call. That's a get out clause as well.
That is a get out clause.
Yeah. But not a bad choice. I'll give you that. Okay, if you could coach any team on the planet, who would it be, past or present, in that era, whatever era it is, mate?
I would probably coach one of the Barcelona teams, the reason for that is I think the culture within that club and their ability to pull players through in a very similar light, and looking at whether you start with the Cruyff group and come on through. I think it would be very, very entertaining to be at a top level club and be part of a system that just churns. And those are the things, and I wouldn't say playing like Barcelona, but those are the things that we aspire to do, is to have a club that has, an identity. And so a true identity, and players have to actually adapt to coming into the club to be successful in the club. I think that would be a fantastic environment at that elite level.
Similar question, because there you are in the dugout, the technical area, which I could never keep in, Brian, anyway. But let's come back side of it. If you could do what you're doing now within a club globally, pick one of those clubs, mate.
Within a club locally?
No, sorry, globally. Any club on the planet doing what you're doing now, mate. So it's gone from technical area coaching to what you're doing now, mate. Connect.
You're gonna laugh, and you're not gonna allow me to go with this answer. But
no, go on.
Be honest with you, the club that I'm in, because I think we're still a long way away from what the ultimate is, and so. Why would you move from a project that's still got so much potential in an area that that's got so much potential?
And it's that buzz again, isn't it? That sort of not knowing, but direction on your program, your philosophy.
I go into work every day excited, or come down the stairs now, but every day excited about what we can achieve today and tomorrow in this club, and so. It'll seem like a cop-out answer, but it's an honest,
I get it.
Answer.
I get it. Last one before I say thank you and you leave us. Dead easy one, mate. If you could have a snack right now, having spoken to me, you'll probably need several. What's your snack? I always ask people, what the food is or the cuisine. What do you like to snack on? That in betweeny.
Oh, geez, everything. I'm really easy on that stuff. I'm terrible about food right now, but it runs the full gamut. I'm gonna say a whole bowl of grapes.
That's healthy, yeah.
It's not because I'm healthy. It just tastes good. There's two different things there.
Yeah. So you pretty much graze all day then. So it could go grapes, a bit of fruit.
I could. And
And
my office home is only about 10 feet from the kitchen, so that's a real issue for me.
Oh, I got to go upstairs for mine, so
Yeah,
I'll get a mini fridge or something down here.
yeah, I think that's
Um,
great.
Brian, I want to say personally on behalf of Sporting Denver, thank you very much. I do witness firsthand the evolving, progressive system that you've put in place here for the Colorado Rapids. I wish you every success. I know it's coming. Well, it's here, and I know it's going to extend that success. And what you do for the community and the way you've conducted yourself with all the clubs here and the association is you get my vote. You get my vote, Brian. Would you like to just leave our Sporting Denver viewers with a message out there under the current climate or anything along those lines? And I'll just say one last time to you, Brian, thank you very much. Appreciated for your time, sir.
Well, I'm just going to say thank you to you and Anthony. Nobody will know Anthony that's sitting behind the scenes on this, but these types of opportunities to share in our community, and a community that's really special to most of us, is fantastic. And so thanks for having me. And hopefully we can be a resource as well to anybody watching that wants to get in touch.